Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Gensuke. Today's discussion focuses on evidence-based leadership development, a critical area for maintaining our organizational resilience and cultivating adaptable leaders. The purpose of this presentation is to provide you with a clear conceptual framework to support your strategic decision-making and developing leadership skills across our teams. We will be using the analytical lens of Soria and Johnson's four propositions of 2022. The complex demands of the modern require us to ensure our leadership and development investments are truly effective. Our analysis today is guided by the three critical questions that structured our research. How do we build experiential learning and tangible skills? How do we ensure our practices effectively promote diversity and inclusion? What is the resulting impact on both individual leader capacity and overall organizational performance? We will answer these by synthesizing Soria and Johnson's framework with contemporary scholarly research. Soria and Johnson synthesized decades of research into a conceptual framework of four actionable propositions. These are the most influential practices for driving deep cognitive and relational leadership growth. In short, effective leadership development must intentionally focus on experiences, real-world high-stakes practice, relationships, structured interactions across differences, cognition, systems-level thinking, and moral reasoning. Differentiation, abandoning the one-size-fits-all model for equitable results. And now let's look at each proposition in detail, comparing it to the other practices and examining its strategic implications. Proposition 1 is clear. Real leadership competency is built through active participation in real-time complex scenarios. This is learning by doing, elevated. For us, this means moving beyond passive case studies to active case-in-point teaching. Research like that by Okoye of 2022 confirms that high-impact practices like service learning are superior mechanisms for development. The strategic benefit is guaranteed application of tangible behavioral skills. However, the challenge is resource intensity. It demands expert supervision and structured reflection to convert that activity into a lasting learned skill. Proposition 2 argues that leadership is fundamentally a relational process that requires social competence and working effectively across differences. This shifts our focus away from mandatory one-time diversity training to structural interventions. Research by Thomas and others shows that formalized intergroup dialogues and cross-identity mentorship are far more effective. The strategic benefit is building inclusive climates and fostering critical perspective taking. The systemic hurdle, however, is the reliance on highly skilled facilitation and avoiding the risk of tokenizing participants' experiences if not managed carefully. Proposition 3 addresses cognitive capacity. Leadership is expanded by forcing leaders to widen their worldviews through complex systemic problems. The practical shift here is moving beyond technical management training to adaptive leadership. Joseph Richard and others emphasize using wicked problems, those with no easy solution, to induce the cognitive dissonance necessary for higher order thinking. The outcome is a transition to strategic thinking and increased moral reasoning capacity. However, the risk is instructional. Participants often resist this dissonance, and measuring this internal cognitive growth is difficult. Finally, Proposition 4 challenges the universal assumption that one-size-fits-all models work. They fail to address systemic barriers, meaning development must tailor to identify for equitable impact. The best practice shift is from generic programs to identify specific cohorts. Day and Denhauser of 2024 show that this tailoring addresses distinct challenges, leading to higher efficacy and increased retention for marginalized groups. The strategic benefit is clear. It formally aligns our learning and development, leadership and development efforts with our DEI goals. However, the systemic hurdle is organizational managing resource allocation and avoiding the risk of siloing among different groups. The evidence clearly shows Soria and Johnson's framework defines the architecture of effective leadership development today. The key is alignment. Ropnell and colleagues show that sustained duration is necessary for cognitive growth, validating Proposition 1 and 3. A one-day workshop won't cut it. Furthermore, the shift to developmental systems cited by Day and Denhauser validates the call for differentiation in Proposition 4. This confirms that the highly tailored systems, not universal programs, maximize impact. In sum, an effective strategy must be sustained in its effort and highly customized in its delivery to ensure equitable growth across our talent pool. Finally, what is the impact? Effective practices lead to dual outcomes. For the individual, we see enhanced adaptive capacity, higher self-efficacy, and a broader social capital network. For the organization, the benefits are systemic. Distributed leadership, increased sustainable effectiveness, the promotion of dialogue builds an inclusive culture, and the investment signals commitment, which directly impacts talent retention and strategic agility. Based on this analysis, I have two categories of fund recommendations, one for educational design and one for organizational strategy. For educational design, we must mandate reflection for all experiential learning, use wicked problems instead of easy case studies to force cognitive growth, and to institutionalize dialogue as a core structured part of our curriculum. For organizational strategy, we must formally tailor development by funding identity-specific cohorts, systemize coaching by moving away from informed mentoring, and finally assess development based on cognitive growth and capacity, not just participant satisfaction scores, as Dave Denhauser recommended.